Hi everybody, I'm back here. I'm Alex Lima, Professor and Director of Career Services at Atlantis University. I hope you're all doing well. I just wanted to continue our conversation in some topics which are really relevant to your career development. One of the things that I find fascinating, which is part of our normal life, is about negotiation. We are always negotiating, we are always buying, and we are always selling. Many times we don't realize that. We're doing that with our families. We're selling ideas, we're selling concepts, we're selling products, we're buying concepts, we're buying ideas. But we don't realize that process is so much with our integral part of our life. So we do every day, every time, right? With people, with your kids, with your friends, with your relatives, your company, your clients, your customers, your partners, your government. So we do it everywhere. So negotiation skills is something that will be and will ever always be very profitable for you to know and have at least the basics. As anything else in life, the more you negotiate, the better you get at it. And you got to understand that there's nothing really bad about negotiating. It's something very normal that it's a get and go with a very fundamental element in place. The negotiation skills, my number one rule, which became a cliche but truly applies, is like this. The win-win is the best strategy. Still is the best strategy. Some people say, oh, this is a cliche. Everybody says that. We are tired of hearing a win-win situation. Yes, because a win-lose is horrible, or lose-win, right? Because you don't want to truly be a loser on a relationship or an engagement that is supposedly to be profitable. Now, sometimes there's no way out because for whatever reason it's not ethical, or there's some other things you don't fundamentally agree on your way of living, and you just walk away. There's no negotiation, not because it's a win-lose in the negotiation, because the fundamentals of the negotiation are not there. So if you negotiate with someone which is something illegal or something that is not within your beliefs, or something that is fundamentally against your political principles or social principles or economic principles, you may be saying, you know what, I'm not going to be participating in this negotiation process because the foundations are not there. And that's totally fine. So you set your boundaries of engagement, right? But I'm assuming that you have an engagement process going on that is already accepted, that you will participate in that process. And therefore, I'm going to discuss that element. But obviously, in many situations in life, you would not engage. For example, if you're environmentally friendly and conscious about the environment, you would not negotiate with a company to be your vendor, probably, that pollutes the environment without control. And you say, I'm not going to negotiate because I'm already against that way they do business. So why am I going to be engaging with them on further discussions? Because it's against my principles. In that case, there's no negotiation per se, right? It's something that you're not going to do. Nothing's going to happen. So, as I said, we're always negotiating. We don't realize that, but we negotiate at home. We negotiate at school. We negotiate with your friends. Setting up a time to play soccer, or a chess game, or negotiate, for example, when to start a new construction, or negotiate buying a new house or a new car, or selling your car. You do that with your friends at a club. When negotiate, for example, the results of a game that the referee said there was a goal, and you say, no, that was not true. Yes, no, it was a fault, whatever. So there's always a conversation going on in many aspects of your life, when you're selling, when you're buying. And I would simplify this in a sense that we are buying and selling all the time. We are buying and selling tangibles and intangibles. Intangibles, which are, concepts, ideas, training, things that you get knowledge, etc. But you buying and selling at the same time on a daily basis. So we simply don't realize that. So therefore, I will not be far away from the truth, saying that we are all buyers and sellers. So you're selling all the time. So when I see people telling me, I'm salesperson, I don't know how to sell, I said, that's not true. You know how to sell, or you don't realize you're selling, but you're selling every day, and you buy it too. So negotiation skills go with you, since some people are more talented since the early ages, but you can definitely train yourself to become a good negotiator. There are some techniques. There are many, many techniques. If you look at the library, there's a lot of books on negotiation skills and to be a good negotiator. There are a lot of people that have, theater situations where you play a role and you have a particular way of behaving. And some people advocate sometimes you just leave the meeting upset and shows a lot of dissatisfaction, so to kind of put pressure on the process. Yeah, there's a lot of those stuff, but I wanted to be away from this for the time being because many of those things, you as a talented negotiator, once you get to that level, you will realize those are just bad actors playing a role to just get their message across, or may sometimes put pressure on you, or get deals which are not good for you. So you need to know those things, but you don't have necessarily to play by those kind of rules. Again, it goes back to what I said about the foundations, right? You just do what you feel comfortable. So the negotiation has a couple phases. Any negotiation, you have a couple phases that you need to follow. Those phases are the traditional phases. You got a preparation, you got the information exchange, you have a bargain, you have the conclusion, and you exit, you leave. By the way, that's something I wanted to mention right now because it's interesting. Some people never leave the negotiation. I knew a person that was always trying to convince the client to buy something more, and he never closed any deals. Because every time the client was about to say, I'm in, I'm buying, I agree with you, he says, but you haven't seen the next thing I'm going to tell you about. And that became almost like a never-ending, never-closing deal kind of situation. So you need to exit, you need to leave the negotiation. So you come with something that you wanted to get, which in your opinion is reasonable, right? Don't come with something that is one-sided, because that's a killer, right? If it's just one-sided, you're already assuming there is a lose from the other side. And that's not a win-win, it's a win-lose right off the bat, right? So don't come with that. Just come with something that is reasonable. What is your minimal acceptance and the highest, which is a plus? And what is your expect to get? And you kind of play around between the minimal and the maximal in the medium zone, right? But you have these phases. You prepare, you get information, you understand the deal, you understand the product, you understand the sales, you bargain, you talk, you exchange information, you discuss conditions, etc. You conclude the discussion and then you leave. And you say, done, we are happy, and you leave. Hopefully with the condition that is a win-win. Remember, if people buy from you an idea or a product and they don't really feel a good deal, it always happens the buyer's remorse. If you have heard, you probably have heard of it, right? The buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is really bad because it kills future opportunities. It's when you buy something from somebody and you just go home, or a couple hours later, you come and say, wow, I made a mistake. That was not worth it, that money. I don't need that. Why did I buy it? Because the guy convinced me. He pushed me, and I went with that wave of convincement. Don't do that. So try to get into a situation that it's a really good, healthy, productive deal. And you will feel, again, you'll get better as you do more, right? So what are the things that are critical, in terms of negotiation? What should you do in a negotiation? How should you behave to be a better negotiator? Again, there are people that have been trained to be negotiators in the United Nations, in politics, in large, mega business deals of billions of dollars. It may take years, or may take 1 year, months of discussions with different levels of different groups, of different organizations to get all together. So you have, first of all, you need to have a collaborative attitude. So you're willing to collaborate, co-laborate, which means you labor together, you're co-laboring. So you're working together truly, not pretending you're collaborating. As the name says, collaborate, you collaborate. So you do labor, you work together. And that's fundamental for a good negotiation. Both sides see the willingness to engage, right? Very important, collaborate. So, and you judge yourself how willing you are, how good you are to truly collaborate. So collaboration means you're looking at both sides right away. So, willing to see the other side is the next element. You can only collaborate when you're really willing to work with the other side and see the other side. If you don't want to do that, then you're not truly collaborating. It's just being one-sided. So you just think about you, what I'm going to get, how I'm going to do, and things like that, right? So communication skills. You need to state clearly what things are acceptable, what things are not acceptable, when you leave, or the boundaries of your negotiation. We'll just give you some examples. So those conditions could be because of rules and regulations that need to be apply, or you need to work by those rules and regulations. Could be something about the pricing range, or it could be something about the location of the service, whatever the situation is. But you are willing to decide, you need to be clear and communicate clear about what you're looking for. And you need to understand what the other side is telling you. So the communication skills for both sides need to be absolutely there. Communication in itself is a different thing. The ability to speak in public, naturally, you get to train. It doesn't come naturally. The more you do it, the better you become. But again, the communication skills is listening and speaking in this order, listening and speaking. So the more you listen, the more you input, and then your output hopefully will be better, right? So clarity. I say that, no hidden agendas. Don't come something out of your pocket and say, oh, I waited for this moment just to throw this on the table, and everybody gets really upset. No hidden agendas. This is horrible. That destroys the confidence, because if you're negotiating to do something that's going to be a longer term relationship or a partnership, you wanted to have those things as a productive, as a clear, as a good, conversation. Let's say you're going for a job and you're negotiating your job, interviewing, which is a formal negotiation when you're presenting your capabilities. The potential employer is asking you about things, and all of a sudden you keep something hidden, that some degree that you say you have, you did not have. Your resume was wrong, and you kept on purpose, hidden. I don't know, something that you almost by the end you say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. You did not forget to tell him. You knew it all along, right? So you were not clear cut and crystal clear about what the things were. So no hidden agendas. That kills everything. That kills the confidence. The level of engagement goes to zero. The collaboration disappears. You become defensive. The other side becomes defensive. It's a done deal in terms of not moving forward. No hidden agendas, right? And also, finally, honesty. You need to be honest about what you're trying to get, what you don't want, what you want, and you just lay out that thing on the table and just say, here's what I'm looking for. Sometimes you don't have that clear, what you want to have. You just want to see how that goes. Totally fine. But whatever you're doing, you need to be clear. You need to be honest to your principles. You need to be honest to your objectives. You need to be honest to the way you think that a good business relationship should be conducted. And I would circle back to a job interview or a salary negotiation or a benefit negotiation in the moment, but for the time being, think about those principles: honesty, collaboration, no hidden agendas, communication skills, and things like that, right? So a couple of things I want to tell you. Again, you read this thing based on what I'm just telling you, that your foundation is there. Your non-accepted items are removed because you engage in something that the other two sides think similarly on that conversation. So everything is negotiable. Technically, it's not true, because if I don't know my other side, if I don't know that person or their industry or their company, that is not necessarily true. I'm not going to negotiate things which are illegal, which are against the law, or that's ethically unacceptable or immoral. So those things will be off grounds, off limits. The negotiation won't even start. So everything is negotiable comes from the principle that I already know the rules of engagement and the other side that I'm talking to. So everything is negotiable in terms of conditions, pricing, services, what is going to be, being considered. So treat it as if it were a game. So if you do it as a game in a good sense, that you're playing that role play of giving, get, and let's interact and see how it goes, I think it makes the negotiation process a lot lighter. All negotiations that go in a good way, those have those dynamics. Now, obviously, many of you or some of you have been to situations which are very antagonic, the people are angry. There could be somebody that being like, a civil, on courts, on legal situations. Yes, there could be situations, negotiations very difficult, and you have lawyers and groups, because those are absolutely, in different parts of the spectrum of the ideas, and they would never agree. So you have to have a mediator or a third party or a lawyer or a judge that will come and listen to the parts to kind of make a determination. That's because by design that they would never agree. The individual here likes blue, the other individual there likes yellow. The blue and the yellow will never open to different colors. They don't want to get into a middle ground like a green or white or purple. They want to stay with their colors, and that's end of the game. So unless somebody stays in the middle to try to make this thing work, that's not going to happen in negotiation. So you force the entrance of third parties or mediators or lawyers to make that happen. And that's a different kind of dynamics that will require different kinds of negotiations, because everything is going to be very force-fit, very pushy in that sense, because that's the principle of that engagement. Try to get benefits from the side which are not willing to give anything back or out. So still, win-win is the way to go. So when you have a good business relationship, or you try to get the win-win, is good for me, is good for you. So I personally think that if I'm buying a service, I want to buy with a fair price. So I want the other side to feel that the price that the person is selling is a good price. I prefer to pay, I think we should give good commissions and good money, to people, so they feel, that things are being treated, equally. So there's a good relationship among the parts. So I think it's a bad feeling when the other side really clearly feels that one side is trying to get some advantage, or some unfair advantage, or some being pushy on something, etc. So when you have a salary negotiation, it's always a good practice, to know the salary that you're looking for, and know also the limits and the expected salary of that organization. Because if you go to a salary negotiation as a candidate, for example, and you want X amount of dollars, and the company only pays way less, Z amount of dollars, way less than what you want, and there's no way they're going to get to what you're looking for, that's a done deal. The deal means no deal, right? There's no deal. So you did not do your homework. So you go to a place and ask for an amount of money, and they cannot pay for sure, because they never pay that kind of money in that business or in that function. So you need to know, you have to do your homework, which implies in a salary negotiation, you as a candidate, about your lowest salary, your medium, and the best situation, or the best scenario possible. And everywhere in between, it will make you happy as a starting point. And you also would consider other things about the job, like, for example, benefits, promotion, development, that the company or the organization pays your development, other things that will, get you going on your professional career. But remember, salary negotiation is a negotiation. Sometimes in a salary negotiation, there's no negotiation. It's just like the salary is given to you, and the culture of that conversation, the culture of that company, or the dynamics of that situation will not allow you to be, pushing things toward you. I'll get back to salary negotiation a little further along in this presentation. So do not believe that people are entirely on your side. That's another thing that, as again, the collaboration, the communication, but always keep a watchful eye in what the other side is trying to do, etc. That's a good practice, because in some situations things may evolve to a walking away from the negotiation, right? And you wanted to be aware of what the other side is doing at any given time. That takes time for you to learn, because it implies, body language, the eye contact, the way people speak, etc. And if there are training that you can do to understand body language, understand other signals that individuals or groups send, and you can capture those, and you can really do a pretty good job to map out the situation in that relationship or that conversation, right? So leave the door open if you don't come to terms. Sometimes you say, you know what, that's not good for me. I'm gonna pass for the time being. But you leave it open. You leave it positive. You don't have to leave in a fight. You don't have to terminate that negotiation for that time with a fight. You just say, now guys, doesn't work for me. I'm not prepared to go to these things. So sometimes they wanted to pay you or to hire you or to have you doing a service for X amount of dollars. You say, no, I'm not willing to do that. Or sometimes they want you to come with something free as a provider. And they say, no, I can't do that now. Maybe in the future I could, but now I can't. Or they want you to also provide services or work in a different country. You may be hired, the interview with you goes, did you go to work, for example, in Pennsylvania? And they're talking to you about Pennsylvania, and you're okay with the salary. When it comes to the final or some later stage in the game, they turn and say, well, by the way, it's not going to be in Pennsylvania, it's going to be in Alaska, or it's going to be in Arizona, or it's going to be in Mexico, or it's going to be in the Netherlands. And that was something completely off. You never thought about it. You're not prepared to go. You have family issues that will not allow you to travel. So, you say, guys, I appreciate it. It was a good time. I think we had a good conversation, but for the time being, I cannot have this flexibility, and I don't want to waste more of your time. The way you say that obviously would change depending on the situation. But be honest. Be intentional about what you convey. I think is better for everybody, right? So understand the true bottom line. So when you go to an interview or you go to a negotiation process, you need to have clear your bottom line. What is your minimal? What's your minimal acceptable? You're selling your house, and people say, I want to sell my house for $100,000, for example. But I could go up to 80,000. If 80,000, if somebody comes with 80,000, I will get a deal done. So 80,000 is your bare minimum. You cannot go 79 or 78. That's your true bottom line. Anything about 80 is because, of course, you want to go as closer to the 100 as possible. Maybe you're going to start at 110 or 120, which is a negotiation, which is a strategy to really narrow your price to reduce your price to the expected price. You want to get 100,000, right? But 80,000 is your true bottom line. The true bottom line could be working conditions if you get a job, could be locations of where your office is, the balance between remote and being in the office, the hours per week, the overtime required, working on the weekends, anything that is the true bottom line. You say, you know what, my bottom line, for example, you could say, I'll never work on Christmas. I'll never work on a religious day. I don't know. Something that is a true bottom line for you as a candidate for a job, or even if you're already working on a business, as many of you are, have your jobs, etc. You say, this is something that I cannot go below. And be innocent. I think that being innocent is an interesting approach, which you look like you don't know what's going on. You kind of look a little bit aloof. You look a little bit off the ground, but you're watching every single minute, every single second of what's going on. But you don't have this aggressive mindset that you know everything. You're just like there to just cut the deal. You just relax, you let go. Some people do that very well. First time I went to Japan, I knew that many years ago, I went to Japan first time to negotiate with a large company. And it was a lot of people and me presenting. And I knew that in many countries in Asia, they use the silence as an element of consideration. In Western world people that come from countries where communication skills are very value, you will have a tendency to say things or use that silence to give more benefits or give better deals. I was aware of that, and I was just quiet as they were quiet. So it's very interesting to watch everybody quiet, everybody look at each other, and then finally we broke that quietness and we start talking again. So, but a lot of people are uncomfortable. So just go with the flow, you be innocent, you just have a relaxed attitude. Remember, the negotiation that is good negotiation is good for you and for the other part. So additional points I wanted to cover with you, I was just mentioning, sometimes there are third parties like lawyers, specialists, reviewers, technical presenters, mediators, adjusters. When you have like a home insurance problem, you bring an adjuster. So you between you and the other party. So then obviously the dynamics is a little bit different. You need to bring them on the same page. Sometimes this is very contentious. Not all negotiations are friendly, right? Some are very contentious. You just have to prepare for that. Again, the principles that I told you, you prepare, you gather information, you bargain, apply. So you really work with your team or your group in terms to get what is acceptable by both sides. In many cases, the presence of a third party is always required so that you or the other side do not go to a territory that you don't really understand the details. So not because it's a contentious discussion, but because there are so many details and those require third party intervention. In a job interview, when you interview with a company, there is the HR person, there is the hiring manager, there are other influencers. All these individuals will be participating. To some extent, I would make it an analogy with the third party, because you're dealing first with the HR person that brought you to the organization. And she or he will talk to you and give you the first impression about your behavior, the way you treat others, et cetera, et cetera. That we'll cover that later about interviewing principles, which a lot of people unfortunately make mistakes on those interviewing principles, right? But so you talk to HR and then you go to the hiring manager. The hiring manager passes you along to other people that will talk to you or ask you questions. If it's a technical interview, they may ask you to write some lines of code, or you have to present like a project or some discussion. All part of the negotiation process. So it's more people involved, and all of them you're negotiating with them. You're negotiating with them in a job interview. Their acceptance of you, they liking you, they wanting you to come to work for them. That's what you're trying to get. So the same principles of negotiation applies. You just have multiple sides. So sometimes you apply for a job in a different country, or a company that's totally different culturally, or a company that is located in a different country, which has all the cultural elements. Then the negotiation process changes, right? The way is accepted, the engagement, the body language, the approach with those people to negotiate something. If you can negotiate or not, those things come to play very quickly, and you need to be aware of the cultural recommendations or the cultural requirements of that country before you go, right? So the way they dress, the way they behave, the way to treat people, if you're more senior than you, etc. The way you walk with side by side. Many, for example, countries in the world, you need to respect that much more complex etiquette. So when you do the negotiation, like a candidate for a job, or if you're selling a product, the whole negotiation is different. The whole negotiation is a lot more elements to be considered in that process, right? So you need to be very careful, very cautious about that, right? And know that ahead of time. So observe body languages is something that I want to tell you, which is really important. So there are many articles and many books on body language, and I strongly recommend you to start looking at those. We use those when you negotiate, when you sell, when you buy. The body language is to really read other people, and the signs that people give you, they don't even realize those signs, but they give you, inviting you or rejecting you, or getting closer to you or being away from you, or just give you space or give you or putting you on a distance, right? If they're like sideways to you, they're not really truly frontally engaged with you. The way they make eye contact, they look at you. I'm not saying staring at you like this, like a robot, but all those things, the tone of the voice and things like that, those are very important in any negotiation process. So when you're talking to people and you're negotiating a salary or benefits in a company, the body language will kind of guide you. If you go way too off, you will see the other side uncomfortable, or moving around or jerking around in some jerk movements, and you'll see, well, that did not go that well. But fortunately, you should have done your homework, and you know ahead of time what to approach, what not to say, what is acceptable, what is culturally not acceptable. You have to do your homework before any negotiation including obviously negotiation with the company when you're going to negotiate your position, your salary, your working conditions, your benefits, and things like that, right? Follow your instincts. Very important. And you develop those instincts or intuition as the time progresses. The more you do it, the better you become. So the intuition is no training. It's just that your brain understanding patterns that happened before, and you're able to navigate those patterns, even sometimes without thinking about them. And something triggers you and say, this doesn't look right. And your years of experience give it to you. Sometimes individuals look at a bunch of numbers and they say, this business doesn't look solid. And you say, why? You just look for some, profit and financial data, but he has been seeing this for so many years. He knows almost like a pattern of a good, business. And he will validate, obviously. You're not going to trust your instinct blindly, but look at your instincts as trust your first impression and then validate, right? Just do the validation, but don't forget about it. So be reasonable in a negotiation. Don't put yourself in a corner. Be reasonable. So don't try to say, I'm only want this, but everything else is fine, but I just want this. What do you want? I want yellow, but all the other colors okay, but I just want yellow. I don't have any problem with the other colors, but I just want yellow. That's not going to work as a negotiation. So if you say to the individual, my salary is like X amount of dollars. Well, we don't have that salary, but then I'm not willing to negotiate. Then negotiation is over because of you. You put yourself in a corner. You're not going to get out of the corner, and then the conversation is over. So you're not really approachable, reasonable. You're not trying to really negotiate. You already put yourself into a position that is non-negotiable, right? Some situations are non-negotiable, as I explained to you before, in terms of ethical, things that are, not against the laws, which are non-negotiable, right? So we should not get into those conditions. But sometimes, other things you may put yourself in a corner, and that's hard to get out, right? And be nice, with people. Don't be a rude individual. Don't try to play the power game. I personally don't like the power game at all. When people are more senior or they are in a powerful position and they kind of look down on you and I don't like that. I think that's very detrimental for a good relationship. It doesn't matter if you're, a junior person or a senior person, a very senior person. I think we should treat people the same consideration, the same engagement, and you should learn to do that. Don't get tricked into being the arrogant kind of behavior that you have when people think, oh, I'm very important, I'm very rich, I'm very powerful, and I'll treat everybody or anybody the way I want to do it, and if they don't like it, so be it. I think this is, in some cases, may even work on a very short time, but mid-long term, it never works. People would not look for you, and your negotiation capability goes down, and you're going to have to use other people to do the work that you could be doing for you because you can't get it done, right? Another couple points which are really important is that you say, negotiate an entry point. So better than having nothing. So when you have a situation that you can, discuss multiple options, negotiate an entry point. So things that could be at least a way to get into the conversation with that particular organization or that particular company, which is a first initial conversation, initial discussion that you should set it up, right? So know what's financially feasible. For example, I was telling you about a salary. If you go to a company and the company pays you X amount of dollars, how much is that feasible? You know them, I will tell you right now, most of the companies in any position, they have a range of salary. They have what you call 80%, 100%, and 120%. That's typical. And in that case, a junior person or someone without experience for that role usually gets an 80% salary. So if the salary is like 10, the individual will get 8. And a very, very experienced person will get 12, which is like a lady with a lot of experience in that role or that kind of position. However, when you are in the 12 level, you cannot move in the range anymore because you're already in the maximum of the range. So you get no salary increment. So typically, companies will try to put you somewhere between the 80 and the 100%. So they can move you with promotions and still in the same range without promoting you to the next level of the organization. So when you negotiate a salary, you have to keep in mind that there is an 80% salary and there is a 100% salary, which is the medium of that role. For that company, based on the salary methodology that they use. So when you negotiate a salary, you know the individual in that company has limited capabilities to address your financial interests, financial need. So if they offer you an 8 and you need a 10, you may get it. But if your experience is really, you're a beginner, you never worked, you don't know that role well, they're going to try you, it's very difficult to pay you at a 10 level, which is a medium, like a reasonably experienced professional that has been in the market for a while in that particular role. So you need to understand that, because if you're unreasonable, it's not going to work. You'll put yourself again, as I said before, in a corner, and the negotiation is over, right? So be patient. There are phases. I was telling you, some approaches at phase 1, phase 2, etc. You need to be patient on that process. Don't be pushy. Don't try to rush things to get things done out of the way. Or if you're talking to a company in a negotiation for a new position, don't keep calling the HR person every day. Don't call the guy every hour, or the HR or the recruiter. Say, what's going on? I need to know, etc. Because that really doesn't make any sense. It's going to annoy everybody, and they cannot make a decision the next day. So many times it takes some time to consider all the candidates, etc., etc. So in any negotiation, you have to be patient. You have to know the timing to call individuals, right? So when things happen your way, when things happen the way you'll feel happy about it, show happiness, show contentment, and just tell your employer that you're really happy with what you got, and you're really willing and you're really interested to work for their company or their organization. But be genuine, as much as possible, as much as you need a job. The worst I can do is that you not be truthful. You fake an enthusiasm that doesn't exist, because it will catch up with you. In a couple of days or weeks or months, you will feel that lack of energy. People realize very quickly that it was just the initial thing about, I just want a job. I just want to land this money in my pocket every 15 days. And that's it. So I'm not truly that happy as I thought. And I would try to tell you that I was not really truly 100% genuine. So that will hurt you, hurt your credibility. So in your negotiation skills, in the negotiation process with your potential employer, just be genuine. If you don't really like that job, don't take it. But if you really need a job for a financial need, you need to work, etc., if you take it, please make a tremendous effort to really enjoy. Try to find the positive side of that job. Try to find the positives of the learning of that job. Don't quit in 3 weeks or 2 months, because it's going to hurt your resume, your career. You need to go the mid range. Maybe you stay a year or a year and a half or something, but try to find the good of that position. Because if you leave just for the sake of leaving without any particular reason, sometimes you have to move to a different city or whatever, that looks really bad. So sometimes, you need to leave, the negotiation process. So it's totally fine to walk away and say, guys, I don't think we get anywhere, because you're investing time, you're investing energy, you're investing brain power, and things are not moving the way you think they should be moving. It's totally fine to just say, that's not good for me. I'm going to go away. But do it with elegance. Do it with flair. Do it with a good approach. Don't be rude. Don't be obnoxious. Don't keep shouting or, sending bad, emails and criticizing the process, the people. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the only one hurt is you. So if you say, oh, I hate this company, that I was treated very poorly, etc. If you may even say that, but you say with elegance, you say in a way that is serious, that is well accepted. That's a good criticism. But if you just say in a way that is absolutely, irrational or with anger, etc., I think it's going to hurt you more than anybody else. Because at the end of the day, you put the emotional component, the emotion would just, disguise the real facts, and people will say, well, he was just, or she was just angry. It's a very emotional individual anyway, with, no self-control, etc. So keep the doors open. You never know when things would be needed in the future. And we are in a biz of negotiation, right? We negotiate everything based on our foundations being taken care of, right? The ethics, the legality, the morality, etc. Those are there, the environmentally friendly, whatever your principles are. Once those things are acceptable and they're respected, then you negotiate everything. But you keep the door open. So if you don't close a deal, you don't close the door. You just keep the door open for future deals. Those things come back, and people go back to you and ask you questions. Hey, now I think you may be ready. What about this, etc. It has happened to me many times. And if you close doors, it's over. Nobody wants to talk to you anymore, right? So explain why. When you're leaving, you just make everybody clear. Hey, I'm leaving because of this, and don't disappear. One day I interviewed a candidate many years ago. And in the middle of the interview, he was going to another person. He just disappeared. He left the building. He just left. He didn't want to go anymore. He said, well, this job is not for me. He just left. He disappeared. He was in the building talking to people. He talked to me. I found him, a good candidate, technically sound. But in the process, he was thinking it was a manufacturing company. He didn't want to work in manufacturing. Nobody knew about that, so he just left. So when he went from one place to another, he decided to go. And when I asked, what is the candidate? What is the outcome? We don't know. What do you mean you don't know? The guy was here, and all because he left. So do you think I'm going to ever talk to him again? Never, ever. Because there's no reason for you leaving in the middle of the interview just like walking out. That's completely unacceptable. And it's a killer for anything else in the future. So when you're negotiating your job interview, or you're there in the process, which mingles to the interview techniques and the process of being interviewed, which is negotiation, all this stuff together, right? Be careful with these things. Explain why. Explain that the job is not for you because of X, Y, Z, right? Be, gracious with your potential to be, which was not to be your employer, right? Keep the relationship open if possible. So keep the doors open, the relationship open for future opportunities. If there are elements of illegality, of unethical behavior or immoral behavior or anything that hurts your principles, just leave and explain that, because anybody should not do anything that is illegal or is immoral or out of the laws and regulations of the country, or things that fundamentally hurt your principles. That's a no-no, and it's no way to continue. So you should just say, if you don't feel comfortable being so, direct about those things that you find very bad, or you don't have proof of that, and just think about that you heard or your friend told you, and you not really have formal proof, but that's enough for you to feel very uncomfortable. You just explain, say, you know what, I have other opportunities. I think this job is not for me, and I thought carefully. I'm sorry to have taken your time, etc., and just graciously leave. You may change your mind or have other priorities or other ideas during the process. Sometimes may take 2, 3 months, 5 months. You may say, you know what, I'm not interested in that job anymore. I want to take a different direction. It's totally fine. Some companies, particularly large companies, when they hire you, it may take 6, 7 months in the process, or 5 months. If it's a more senior role, it's going to take 3, 4, 5 months. And this time, many things could happen. And then you're perfectly okay to say, you know what, I have something else. And everybody would understand that, right? Anyway, so it's always a pleasure to be here talking to you about this topic, which is really close to my heart, which is negotiation skills. Just to close this presentation with some final words, first of all, negotiation is in our DNA. We are negotiators all the time. We don't realize that, but we buy and we sell every day, every time, with your friends, your family, your kids, your relatives, your company, your partners, your customers, your government, other governments, other organizations, industrial organizations. You do it all the time. And you don't sometimes realize that. So we are all sellers and buyers. And in doing so, we have the connection point between buyers and sellers, which is exactly the negotiation process, this glue that keep us really talking to other people. And the negotiation process has to be a win-win. As much as possible, has to be a win-win situation, that you really look the other side and you have a really nice attitude, try to get the best condition possible for your vendors, your partners, so that becomes a fruitful and a longer-term relationship for you and your business. And if you're negotiating a career, think about that you have limitations in terms of salary, what's your true bottom line, what are you trying to get, the benefits and other perks that the organization has, like paid vacation, free time, or other sick days, daycare, or other things that could be relevant to you when you're negotiating the salary or the overall package of that business. And the same principles that you would negotiate when you're selling a house or buying a house apply to that salary negotiation with a potential employer, right? So you would need to know what you want, you need to know your true bottom line, you need to know what you don't want, what things are completely off. For example, you don't want to travel overseas, or you don't want to live in a different country. Those kind of things. You want to manage a team, or you prefer to work by yourself. Those are all discussions that will happen in the process. A final quick note is like this. A lot of people ask me, how do I negotiate my salary? Is that appropriate to negotiate a salary? Yes and no, and I'll explain why. It's always good to know in that role that you're going, in that region or country or county in the United States, or what is the average, the medium salary for that position. If you're going, for example, an IT programmer or a sales manager or a customer service representative with some X amount of years of experience, what is the average salary? There's a lot of sources for getting that salary. Obviously, those are medium average salaries, which varies a lot for many reasons. A larger company, smaller company, startup company, etc. Remember, it's all about what you're willing to get. Sometimes you trade off a lower salary for a longer range in terms of stock options and stock participation in that business. So you choose equity of the business over short-term, financial gain. Some other times you say, no, I just want the money in my pocket. I have lots of expenses. I'm newly married. I have kids. I have a lot of expenses. I need to pay bills. So the longer term equity is great, but I cannot sustain that. And I usually tell people, look at the medium, right? The salary that is of that position, that is the medium salary. Look at that amount. Let's say it's 10. Then drive at 80%. How much will be 0.8 multiplied by that amount? And then the 120%. How much will be that range for you? And see if it's acceptable. Now, if your employer offers you anything in between already 80 and 100, don't negotiate further. Don't just try to push the button a little more and say, no, I don't want 9, I want 9.2. It's just irrelevant, and then it creates an aggravation in the beginning of the conversation with that employer. At the end of the day, it's not going to change your life substantially, and it may cause aggravation. So if you have anywhere in between, for example, 8 and 10 is acceptable, stay there. So if they give you 9, 9.5, 8.6, 8.7, in between 8 and 10, as I told you, you're happy, you okay, you accept it. If they go above the 10, sometimes they say, oh, 10 is the medium, they come with 11. Life is great. They give you more money than you expected, you're really happy. And then if in that situation, try to be careful not to push further other things, since you already got a good result on your conversation. So try to be thoughtful about what you're looking for. Nobody likes that endless discussion about salary or negotiation when you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, like if you're trying to negotiate like a public, a fair, an open market bargain that you try to get a product, go to nitty-gritty on the cents. The job negotiation is a much higher level conversation that you really discuss what's feasible, and your employer or future employer have limitations. They can't go above or beyond those limitations because of company policy, the level of position, other existing employees in that position already, so that they cannot hire you above them, or they want to keep some parity. So you need to be thoughtful about that. So again, simple rule, your midpoint is 10, 80% is acceptable to you or not. From 8 to 10 is okay, and then above 10 life is good. So as always good to have you here listening to me. If you have any questions, I'm always free to listen to you and connect with you. alex.lima@atlantisuniversity.edu. Again, it was a pleasure. Have a great day. Thanks.